Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Student Loan Best Practices. My name is Kathleen Schroeder, and I am the APICS Director of Membership. Before we begin, I'd like to run through a few details. The presentation is being recorded and will be available on the APICS website. At the end of the presentation, we will have time for a question and answer session. If you look at the toolbar on your screen, you'll see a questions box. To ask your question at any time during the presentation, simply type in the box and click send. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Alex Masalak, Business Development Manager with Laurel Road. APICS recently partnered with Laurel Road in order to provide our members with an additional benefit, a 0.2% rate discount when refinancing student loans through Laurel Road. We're excited to have Alex with us today to learn more about this great offer. Alex, you may begin.
Thanks so much, Kathleen, and thanks for everybody for joining. As Kathleen said, my name is Alex Maslach, and I manage business development for Laurel Road. And we are very excited to launch this partnership with APICS. Bit of background, Laurel Road specializes in refinancing student loans for employed graduates. So we're going to talk a little bit about that concept today, as well as the exclusive benefit we're offering APICS members, as well as some of the alternatives to loan refinancing with your federal repayment options. So specifically on the agenda, we'll start out with those federal programs. Most people should have a pretty good understanding of them. They're more frequently talked about upon graduation. Touch on some legislative changes. You may or may not know these federal options consistently are changing, so we'll provide some clarity there, which will bring us to this proverbial fork in the road. You know, student loans are unique in that you may have the opportunity for some subsidy or forgiveness on your federal loans, but if you don't, you know, your objective really should be to minimize the cost of the debt as much as possible, and that's where this refinancing concept comes in. Easiest way to minimize your interest is to lower your interest rate. And we'll look at some case studies for a typical graduate, who has a graduate school degree. How do all these programs shake out? What are your savings potential through some different strategies? And the goal by the end will be to develop an action plan, things you should be keeping in mind as you formulate your repayment strategy. And as Kathleen said, chat functionality is enabled today. So to the extent that you had questions throughout, please feel free to type them in. We'll try and address them along the way, but there will be some time at the end of the presentation for questions as well. So to put all this into perspective, and give a little bit of context on where we've come in the last 10 or so years, student loan debt has just about tripled since 2005. So this slide's a couple years old, but where we stand today is almost $1.4 trillion in outstanding student loan debt. It is the second largest piece of debt in our economy, second only to mortgages. So clearly it's a mounting issue for a lot of borrowers out there. And in light of that, you know, the federal government over these 10 or so years has rolled out a number of repayment options to provide a bit of relief. So one that you're probably familiar with is forbearance. So forbearance means that you make an agreement with your lender to make no payment on your loans for up to 3 years. The loan isn't delinquent, it's not defaulting. You're just not making any payments on it. So this can be a decent short-term solution, like if you lost your job or you need to take a leave of absence, but it's certainly not something you'd want to utilize in the long term. It's very costly. You're not making any progress towards forgiveness, repayments, and the loan is obviously just racking up interest, and the interest is capitalizing and compounding. So, after utilizing forbearance for a couple of years, the loan will have grown significantly on you. So something that's fine to use if needed, but not a preferred option longer term. A good alternative if liquidity, so lowering your monthly payment is of the highest importance to you, are these income-driven repayment options. All three of these base your monthly payment on your income and your family size as opposed to how much you owe. So, for somebody who's maybe just graduated, earning a more modest income relative to their debt, these are a very good option. They ask you to pay either 10 or 15% of your discretionary income towards the loan. And one nice component is all three of them have a forgiveness component built in and of themselves. So if you paid for either 20 or 25 years, depending on the program, any remaining balance on the loans would get forgiven. The caveat with this forgiveness is it's taxable. So theoretically, if you had 50 grand forgiven after 20 years, in that 20th year, that $50,000 is looked upon as income. You have to pay a tax bill on it. So it doesn't necessarily negate its value totally, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. And one specific subsidy benefit I'll point out here is through Repay. Repay is the newest of these three programs. And if you're in Repay, and let's just say you've got a fairly decent sized loan and you're accruing, let's say $800 a month in interest, which isn't unheard of. But your monthly payment based on your income is, let's say, $300. So that leaves $500 every month that you're not covering in interest. But when you're in Repay, half of that $500 does not get charged to you. This is a 50% subsidy on unpaid interest. So by having that interest not charged to you, it effectively lowers your interest rate, making Repay a really attractive option for people with high debt but more modest income. Keep in mind, this subsidy only exists so long as your monthly payment is not covering all the interest. So as your income begins to rise, Repay becomes less attractive. And one last thing I'll point out about all three of these is relative to forbearance, they're all preferable in that your interest is not capitalizing. So remember I said if you're in forbearance, the interest is capitalizing and compounding. That is not the case in income-driven repayment. So a nice benefit there. And another federal program I'll touch on here, though I wouldn't imagine there's a ton of members who qualify for this. It's this public service loan forgiveness option. Basically, if you work for a nonprofit or government entity for 10 years while making qualifying payments on your loans, at the end of those 10 years, if there's anything remaining, it gets forgiven, and there's no taxability with this. So if you have 50 grand forgiven, it's wiped clean off your balance sheet. A lot of misconception about this program. They have to sign up or commit or work in a rural area or something like that. None of that's the case. It's all about positioning your loans such that they're eligible for forgiveness. So only federal direct loans are eligible. Employment-wise, you need to work at a nonprofit or government entity, and then you need to be enrolled in one of those income-driven options I mentioned on the previous slide. So you do that, you make your payment every month for 10 years, there's your 120 monthly payments, at which point the loan would get forgiven. So, full disclosure, if you qualify for this, it's about as good as you can do. Obviously forgiveness and paying as little as possible over the course of your loan is preferable to any interest savings through refinancing. The reality is a small portion of people will qualify for this program. And furthermore, they've already moved to limit the loan forgiveness to $57,500. So if you owed more than that at the end of the 10 years, you need to keep paying on the loan. So this still needs to be voted on. If it's something you're considering, I'd recommend pursuing it for now and just keeping a close eye on the legislative ongoing. So, things can and will continue to change. So as they do, be prepared to pivot and, maybe adjust your repayment strategy. So that's probably a good place to pause for a sec. If there are any questions that have come in about the federal programs, happy to address them. If not, we can start talking about the loan refinancing.
I think not yet.
Okay. So that's good. People are familiar with these federal programs, as you should be. They're much more frequently talked about. Loan refinancing, much newer. This concept's only been around for 4 or 5 years now. And the basic idea is that we, Laurel Road, feel that once you've graduated from school, you've taken a good job, you've been responsible with your credit, that you deserve a lower interest rate than you got while you're in school, right? The fact that you're now working makes you a more creditworthy borrower. So you have the opportunity to come to us. We'll look at your credit, we'll look at your income, we'll look at all your different debts, and we'll make you rate offers based on those factors. And most folks who qualify for this qualify for a lower interest rate than you would have gotten on your federal loans while you're in school. Federal loans typically in the 6 and 7% range, ours more so in the 4 or 5% range. And 1 or 2 percentage point off your rate might not seem like a lot, but as you'll see in the case studies, it's really impactful, and our borrowers saving tens of thousands of dollars in interest over the life of the loan. So to be clear, this is the alternative to any of those federal repayment options. The big consideration once you refinance a federal loan into a private is that you lose any subsidy or forgiveness potential on your federal loans. And in doing so, you'll need to decide, do you want a fixed rate loan? Do you want a variable rate loan? We offer both. A fixed is going to stay the same rate the whole life of the loan, whereas variable is going to adjust every quarter based on the economic interest rate environment. So it can go up and down. Variable is a little bit more risky, certainly more risky the longer you plan on paying the loan back. But it's going to start out at a lower rate than your fixed rate option would. So there's some give and take there. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the easiest way to minimize interest accrual. So anybody who's not pursuing forgiveness and who's able to afford making a full payment, your objective, your strategy should be focused on how do you pay this loan back as cheaply as possible with as little interest as possible. Oftentimes that means finding the lowest interest rate product, which we feel confident we provide. It's also one of the rare instances that you have the opportunity to save money in the long term, but also save money on your monthly payment. So again, in the case studies, apples to apples, paying this back over the same amount of time, by having a lower rate, you're going to pay less each month too. And in terms of what we look for, we're looking for borrowers with a responsible credit history and a demonstrated income. That's who tends to receive the lowest interest rate. So you become eligible for this once you've signed a contract to work. So even if you're graduating school in a few months, you sign a contract, we can refinance the loans as soon as that happens. But there's no deadline to do it. So if you needed to spend a year or two getting your finances in order and maybe using income-based repayment as a stopgap, that's fine too. You can always refinance down the road. And you're also able to refinance some loans and maybe keep others federal. So even outside of forgiveness, if you just had some really low rate federal loans from undergrad, you can absolutely leave those out and only refinance your higher rate loans.
Hey, Alex, we did get a question real quickly. Is the balance that is forgiven treated as taxable income?
So it depends on which type of forgiveness. If you're talking about forgiveness through income-driven repayment, it is treated as taxable income. If you're talking about forgiveness through public service loan forgiveness, so working at a nonprofit, that is not taxable income. It's a good question.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Some specifics of our loan refinancing program. There are absolutely no fees whatsoever associated with it. So, if you had a $50,000 loan that you refinance, we pay off that exact 50 grand and we give you a new loan for exactly 50 grand. There's no origination costs, nor are there prepayment penalties. So if you wanted to pay it back quicker than whatever term you select, you're welcome to do so. We are always happy to take your money with no fees whatsoever. As I said, average borrower saves about 20 grand when you refinance with Laurel Road, which is not insignificant for anyone. And really the only burden to doing this is going through the application process, which is entirely online. You'll be able to get preliminary rates in a matter of minutes. and final rates typically within a day or two. So it's a fairly pain-free process. The only real burden being collecting some documents on your current loans just to show us and verify everything. And I'll show you what the link to apply is on the next slide here. Similar to the federal programs, we do discharge our loans in the event of death or disability. So God forbid, either of those things happen, your loan is discharged. It doesn't get passed down to your estate or anything like that. And we also offer up to 1 year of forbearance. So if you lost your job or whatever it may be, you're in financial duress, you can forbear your loan with Laurel Road for up to 12 months. And on that note, we'll also honor any existing grace period. So if you're coming out of school and you had a 6-month grace period with your current loans, we would honor that. You could wait 6 months till you started paying us back on the refinanced loan. As I said, free to apply. There's also no commitment. So you can get preliminary rates in 5 minutes. If you didn't like the preliminary rates, you can walk away. There's no obligation, no commitment whatsoever to accept. Also, no impact on your credit. So if you apply preliminarily, it's just a soft credit inquiry. It doesn't ding your credit score at all. And APICS members, as negotiated by the association, are getting an additional 0.2% rate discount when you refinance with Laurel Road. So whatever rate we would give you based on your creditworthiness, we'll knock an additional 0.2% off of it as a result of this exclusive member benefit. So, if you were going to get a 5% rate based on your income and your credit, that rate would be 4.8 now as a result of your APICS affiliation. So really a meaningful benefit. 0.2% might not seem like a ton, but if you owed 100 grand, 0.2% is probably saving you $1,500 to $2,000 over the life of the loan. So a really meaningful benefit for sure. And I'm sure everybody has been wondering what are the actual rates. As shown in this table here, these are the rates available to APICS members. All of these include both a 1/4 point rate discount that we provide for making automatic payments, as well as the 0.2 discount. It's a small typo at the bottom of the slide there. It should be 0.2% discount for being an APICS member. So as you can see, these rates in almost all cases are significantly below the federal loan interest rates, which is how you wind up at those $10,000, $20,000 savings numbers. So I'll pause here for a sec if anybody has questions so far about the refinancing, but I know people also want to take a good look at the rate chart, so I'll leave that up for a couple seconds.
Alex, we do have some more questions rolling in. Again, just for clarification purposes, we have a question. Are all of these refinancing programs only applicable once you graduate from school, or could they be done during school to reduce interest rates while in school?
So borrowers only become eligible to refinance once you have accepted a job, so signed a contract, which could be in your last semester of school, but not prior to that. So you need to either have that contract signed or be working currently.
Wonderful. Another question, is the 0.2% on top of the 0.25% for automatic withdrawals?
It is. So in reality, if you sign up for automatic payments and you're an APICS member, you're getting 0.45% lower than you would without those two things being the case. So pretty meaningful savings.
That is great. Another question, is this just for federal loans, or are private loans able to be refinanced with Laurel Road as well?
Private loans are certainly able to be refinanced. In fact, they're probably one of the best candidates to be refinanced. You don't have any of those federal options available with them. They're typically at pretty high rates. So yeah, we welcome all private loan refinances as well.
And last one, and we can keep moving. Do you refinance Parent Plus loans?
We do. Another excellent candidate for financing. Parent Plus loans have some of the highest rates and least flexible terms of all educational debt. So those are typically a very good loan to refinance. Yes.
Great. I guess there is one more based on the chart that we're looking at too. On the variable APR, could the loan ever exceed the amount posted? For example, the 5-year option is the maximum 5.22, or could the loan go to 6% potentially?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I know it's a bit confusing how we show the rates. So the term ranges that we show here, that's the rate in which, or that range is where you'll fall on the initial rate. The caps are 9% for the 5, 7, and 10 year, and then 10% for the 15 and 20 year. So the variable rate could get a good deal higher than what's shown in those ranges.
Great. They keep rolling in, but I'm going to let you keep going because we definitely have time for the Q&A at the end as well.
Okay. So this, I think, is probably the most telling slide in the presentation. It shows a borrower who has about $150,000 loan, and at 7% interest, that's their current federal loan weighted average rate. They want to pay this $150,000 loan back in 10 years. So to do that, it's going to cost them just shy of $1,500 a month, about $17,000 each year. But they are an astute borrower. They come to Laurel Road, and based on the fact that they're working and they have a good credit history, they're also an APICS member, so they get an extra discount. We give them a 4.25% rate over 10 years. And so this immediately lowers their monthly payment almost $200, so they're saving money each month. And then over the course of repayment, borrower saves $20,500. And just to be clear, this is a true apples to apples comparison. Borrower's paying it back in the same amount of time. This is a fixed rate loan versus the fixed rate federal loan they had prior. All they're doing is lowering the rate, and as a result of securing that lower rate, they're saving over 20 grand, throughout those 10 years. So a really meaningful number, not really adding any more risk to themselves by doing this. We're assuming this person wasn't going to get anything forgiven anyway, and so they've just taken the strategy to reduce the interest and saved a good deal of money by doing so. So that's depicted by the light blue column, and the dark blue is someone who takes a variable rate loan. Obviously, we can't pretend to know what variable rates are going to do over the next 10 years, but if we just assumed a constant 3.25, you can see that the payments go down that much more, and the savings is that much greater. Obviously, there's a little bit more risk with the variable rate. It's not a true apples to apples comparison. So I typically tell people, look at the fixed rate example, look at the guaranteed savings you can get by doing this. So I'm sure there's plenty of folks sitting there saying, is this right for me? And it's really hard to say definitively. Each situation is different. But we've listed here, some clues which should kind of drive your decision, or at least drive you to look into this if you're checking some of these boxes. So if you're not planning on pursuing loan forgiveness on your federal loans, you should probably look into refinancing. This is the next best alternative to getting a loan forgiven. As was mentioned earlier, if you have private loans, they probably have high interest rates. They don't typically have any, forgiveness option or income-driven options, so they're good candidates to be refinanced. And if you are earning more than you owe, and this isn't to say that you have to earn more than you owe to be eligible, but if you are, that is a clear indicator you should refinance. You're not going to get anything forgiven. You don't stand to benefit from income-driven repayment. If that's less than your income, you should absolutely refinance. And then, again, mentioned earlier, Parent Plus loans, very good candidates for this. They have high rates. They can't be forgiven. Should likely refinance if you're eligible. So that was all I had content-wise. Happy to take some questions here. For those of you who have to jump after the half hour, I really appreciate you joining. For more information, you can visit us at laurelroad.com/APICS. Or email us or call us with questions. We're happy to talk about your individual situations as well, but certainly know, be it through forgiveness or refinancing, there's plenty of options out there to reduce the cost of this debt. And you should feel emboldened to determine your best strategy. Thanks.
So thank you. We definitely have some more questions rolling in for you, Alex. So first question I'm sorry, I just lost my place here. Do you offer terms shorter than 5 years?
We don't. So 5 years is our shortest term currently, but if you wanted to pay it back quicker, you take a 5-year term and then just make overpayments. Remember, there's no prepayment penalties at all.
Okay, great. So another one is, another big question, this one keeps coming up, can the APICS members be can the APICS member discount be applied when the cosigner is the parent, is an APICS member? So it's,
yeah.
okay.
Yep. So long as you apply through this link at the bottom of the page, you'll be tagged as APICS affiliated and we'll get the rate discount. So if your child was the actual borrower, have them apply through this link and you can co-sign on the loan and we're happy to give the discount.
Great. One question is that I can actually answer. Well, maybe you need to help me with it too, Alex. On the APICS side, how long does a person need to be a member before they can apply for this program? I believe as soon as you are an APICS member, you can apply for this program and then you get the additional 0.2% discount for the length of your membership with APICS. So you do have to be a member year over year to get the additional 0.2%. Is that all correct, Alex?
That is accurate, yes.
Perfect. Let's see. Are variable rates, if ever increased, done on a case-by-case basis, or are they applied based on the LIBOR rate?
They are changed based on LIBOR. So as LIBOR goes up and down, so too will the rate for anybody with a variable rate loan.
Wonderful. Another question that came in, what type of APICS membership is required for a person to qualify for this program? Any type of APICS membership, as long as you are an active APICS member. We confirm with Laurel Road who our members are so that they can keep track. And so, yeah, as long as you have an active membership with APICS, any type, you qualify. How do you know if you are eligible for loan forgiveness?
That's a rather loaded question.
Okay.
The first thing that you'd want to determine is, do you work for a nonprofit or government entity? And then once that's been determined, you should check with your federal loan servicer to ensure that you have federal direct loans. And if those two things are the case, you should be eligible, assuming you sign up for income-based repayment.
Great. Another question we have is there a minimum credit score required for qualification?
660 is our minimum credit score.
Great. Let's see here. What are some of the factors that influence the refinanced interest rate?
So it's pretty cut and dry. It's your credit score, your total income. So you look at your monthly income, and then what are your monthly debt obligations? So including your mortgage, your car payment, your credit card debt, your student loans, that all gets taken into consideration. And we want to see how much money do you have left over to pay the student loan. So the the higher your income is relative to your debt, the better your rate will be.
Great. Another one coming in here is it better to have a spouse cosign or not?
That's up to your discretion. A lot of people have cosigners if they're a borderline borrowing candidate. So it can never, assuming your spouse is creditworthy themselves, it can never hurt your application.
Great. All right. Kind of going off of the minimum credit score, what credit agency do you pull the credit score from?
We use all 3 credit bureaus, and we take the average.
Okay. Let's see here. We've got, is the Perkins loan considered a federal loan?
It is, yes.
It is. Okay, good. And do you refinance MEFA loans? I'm not sure.
MIFA.
MEFA, okay.
It's Mass Education Federation, something like that. We do. So any educational debt, we refinance.
Wonderful. There's one question writing in. I'm currently paying back federal school loans on the income-based repayment plan. Will it be forgiven?
It's impossible to say without knowing how much you owe and your income profile.
Great. Okay. All right. Sorry, they keep rolling in and then I lose the space again. There was one question. Could you please go over the income-based repayment again? Did you say it gets forgiven after a certain time frame?
20 or 25 years, depending on which income-based program you utilize, and this is taxable forgiveness. So whatever gets forgiven through income-driven repayment, you have to pay a tax bill.
Wonderful. Great. All right. So I think we are going to complete the Q&A session there, and then we'll go ahead and provide the Q&A. We can post it also along with the webinar and get all the answers or responses to your questions written or responded to. So I would like to remind or to thank everyone for listening. Thank you, Alex, for this. I quickly wanted to remind everyone, all of our participants today, of all the many members-only benefits that APICS has to offer to help you advance your career, gain industry knowledge, and enhance your professional value. If you visit apics.org/member benefits, you'll see sort of the high level of all of our APICS member benefits, but we also have a quick and easy way for you to access APICS member benefits by simply going to My APICS towards the upper right hand corner of the main navigation, and just make sure that you're logged in. Once you're in My APICS, you will select the My Member Benefits under the My Quick Links drop-down menu, and here you will get you'll see all of the member benefits listed, as you can see in this screen. It's a members only page, and it's got all of the member benefits hyperlinks, so it can take you directly to the different benefits quickly, easily, at your convenience. And I just wanted to kind of remind everyone to go ahead and visit our supply chain channel. It's our APICS online community that allows organic discussions about everyday challenges in careers or questions regarding the different APICS certification options. There's 9 different communities, and they range from hot topics in supply chain management to lean operations to, again, our APICS certifications. Also, we've got, you should definitely frequently check in with the APICS job board, where members have exclusive access to view new job posts 4 days prior to any non-members. Our APICS members are also highlighted to employers in the resume bank with an APICS logo, so make sure you go ahead and upload your resume into the job board as well. And lastly, don't forget to check out some of our newest benefits, which include our value chain framework, such as our score model, We also have the manufacturing and distribution benchmarking tools, and our digital library that has over 400 different tools, templates, and white papers. So again, that's just a real broad highlight of everything of our member benefits, but check out that member benefits page so you can really get add value to all the great member benefits you have access to. So again, we'd like to thank our speaker Alex for his time today, and all of you for participating. We hope you find this new member benefit to be beneficial, and this concludes today's presentation. So this webinar will be recorded and we will make it available to all registered attendees. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.